Okay, turning down the music. Is that level pretty good? So yes, after I just gave you a poke there on Discord because I knew you were tending to get the notifications late or whatever, so I thought I'd help you out there a little bit. I need to turn on my webcam. Boom, there I am. Okay, so the shot from this afternoon, I almost wish I had, recorded the ink and paint process because, hey, Nagat 40. Because this was a really, almost, I would say, somewhat educational shot to do. I'll show you why. When I did Golek, let me just turn all this stuff off. And so we'll give a little recap. But I took Golek's head and I went ahead and did all the different layers for color, but then I animated it with a transform mask. Okay, so you have this transform mask with these animation keys, and that gives you this. So we'll let that play. So, you know, it's pretty economical because there's only one drawing involved, and I figured I'll just put the eye blinks and lip sync on top of it later. So that's that. So then I basically froze that, locked it, and baked it down. And now let's go through Golek, and I'll kind of just do a little recap on what I did here. It looks like I pretty much already got rid of the sketch, the pencil test. So that served as a guide though. So I put the sketch in a different layer. And what I wanted to show here is what I did was I took this hand and I did the same thing with the hand that I did with the head. I figured, okay, so here's a rigid body part. Why not just use a transform mask to animate it? And if it becomes obvious that changing the drawing is important, then I'll do it, right? But so I animated it with a transform mask, and then I actually just copied it to the left. And this one, the transform masks have already been baked in, okay? So on these layers, you do see just keyframes now. But then the other thing I did was for this hand, I just switched it to a different drawing on this frame, so it looks like the back of his hand instead of the front of his hand, and then just switched it back. But what you actually saw if the transform mask was off was just a hand floating up here in space until it gets to this frame, and then just the drawing changed. And then I turn on the transform mask, everything moves the way it's supposed to, bake that down, and then as I said in the afternoon session, then the goal is to just kind of connect the dots. So what I did was, based on the pencil test, I went through and I can't illustrate this. Like I said, I should have recorded it, but I thought it was really interesting how I was able to go through this just frame by frame, keyframe by keyframe. And what I did was I just say, okay, let's catch the outside edge of his arm, let's say. Okay, when I was doing the ink. And I turned on the onion skins so I could kind of see where we had come from. And it's like boom, 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 boom. Do all the tops of the arm, you know. Then boom, 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 all these lines. And I literally did it one line at a time. And it was kind of like this mindset of saying, let's just make sure each of the contours that define the final character, let's make sure each of those animate right, and theoretically when you're done the whole thing will look good, right? And so working that way, like the cuff things were inked. I inked all of those. You know, you guys get the idea. And so then when you put it all together, you know, it's kind of got that a little bit of aliveness to it, you know, like a old school frame by frame. So yeah, pretty satisfied. And then to polish it up, I did a masked shadow layer. Just drew that with the freehand path tool. Added the mouth. It's pretty quick and easy. And then this was a very subtle effect. You guys probably can't even see it, but basically it just lightened up the black ink lines. And then I also added a tint layer because I cut and pasted Vespigi, as you can see, the shot he was pasted from actually has Golic in it, so I had to cut Golic out. And put Carleon in there, slap in a background, and Wango Bango. Complete. So, I don't know how long the whole shot took, but I'm going to guess about 3.5 hours, probably, for an 8-second shot. So, not great, but not bad, you know. So, there it is. What's next? One Wonders. I am not going to save that because that's already been saved. And by the way, is the music too loud, you guys? Or is it okay in the background? If anyone thinks it's too loud, please say the word. Okay, so now what we're going to do is switch to the Vegas screen. And by the way, you guys like the music in the background? Because if you guys hate it, just tell me. I don't, it's no big deal to me. I can turn it off. So now where we're at is, as I mentioned earlier, we're going to skip the crowd shots for now. Music's fine. Okay, cool. So we got this shot of Vespar. So let's go over here. And I guess I could cut that to the clipboard. And let's just rock and roll. So this is going to be boom. Same thing as usual. Alt M for me is color to alpha, and then Control M to clamp the alpha. Get rid of any semi-transparent pixels and darken up the drawing. Obviously that backfired a bit, so let's pull it back a little bit so at least we can see what we're doing. Frankly, what kind of makes sense here is to go grab this, go Control X, Control V, and it's actually now in a separate layer. Control Insert, put a keyframe there, put a keyframe there, pin both these guys to the timeline, and now what we can do is get the frame rate down to 8 where it's supposed to be, and I'm just gonna guess 32 frames on this shot. It's not a real long one. Okay, so that'll be fun. Here, let's take this and let's kind of figure out what's gonna be like our anchor point. And I would say it's this where his garment sort of hits his shoulder. So that really needs to be more like that, and probably this one. I guess we don't want a selection. Will be more like that. And then if we insert a blank keyframe there and bake the two together, Control E, now we have, okay, so there we go. We've got the basic action already in there, and this is going to be shot number 651. Okay, so 651.ping, we're saving over top of it, and we are also saving it as a Krita file. So with that done, now what I'm going to do actually is I'm going to switch to my red lines, and I'm going to hit the G key for the freehand path tool and put it in alpha lock mode so that I can actually just go ahead and color these lines red, because I'm one of those guys who I like a red line. Some people like blue. To each his own. Okay, so X key switches me between black and red. And now I am going to do a little editing. And here I'm going to actually take this back here. A key. So I'm just doing a rough block in here, which could be done with just sketches as opposed to cutting and pasting and all the rest. But oops, that wasn't what I meant to do. I guess we don't want alpha lock. Okay, eraser. Okay, so let's just get a somewhat nonplussed, if not slightly confused, look on Vespar's face. I know the eyes don't look symmetrical right now. I don't care. I'm just trying to get the concept blocked in. And frankly, I can't see what I'm doing because I'm a right-hander. And my hand's covering up part of the screen, so hence flip the screen. So yeah, that's pretty awful, but I don't care. Okay, so let's take this. I'm kind of feeling what I want to do here. Just moving these, come on, Alt. There we go. Trying to move those downstream. Okay. And I am not quite, so I'm going to go ahead and erase this after all, actually. Just looking at those contours I mentioned earlier today. These contours that flow through the character and give you a sense of the, I don't know, just keeping things sized correctly. Okay, and now what I want to do is go boom. Let's do a squunch. All right. Just gonna try it. If I don't like it, I'll undo it. Okay, so we're gonna go A key, liquefy, and I'm actually gonna do a little bit of a squunch, and then bring this back, boom, and zip in here. We're probably gonna, we may want that to be more than one frame, but we'll see. So take this, make a copy there, and now what I want to do is go ahead and get rid of those guys and those. And this is one of those cases where I really want to just flow with it and have fun. There. That's probably going to be something a little bit more wide-eyed there. Vespar's being sort of boxed into speaking to the crowd by Golek, and he didn't know that was coming, so. Okay. Okay, yeah, so this, boom, blomp. And then obviously we don't want this to settle in, so this is definitely not long enough. What I meant to say is we don't want it to be settling into the next pose quite so quickly. So 48. Save our work. I like the whole RGB spectrum when doing my rough animations. Yeah, and you can do that. You can do you know, there's no reason, especially if you're confident with your drawing, there's no reason you couldn't just say, well, you know what, I'm just going to block it in with shapes, you know, do this kind of stuff, and actually just use color. It's all good. Okay, so now, whoops. Yep, I still think that's happening way too quick. Okay, so now I'm going to change this. I don't actually think he needs to look forward, so hit the B key and let's just toggle between the eraser. And boom, I'm just gonna give this a little turn, try to stay on the anchor point. Oops, didn't mean to do that. X key. I hit the X key when I meant to hit the slash key and switch from the eraser to the pencil. But this is fun to do, you know, it's just, you're just flowing with the pencil test. Okay, so this shot is not needed. That shot is not needed. Okay. Bloom. Okay, I'm gonna keep going with this. So he goes shoom, Bam. Okay, try that again. Try another squinchy squunch there. By the way, if anybody doesn't know, I did release Salt and Light webisode 7 yesterday, so if anybody hasn't checked it out or wasn't aware, well, be aware, there is a new episode out. Okay, and this one needs to be... Whoops, we did not mean to shear that. In fact, you know what, I'm going to actually go ahead and anchor that there. So I might be overacting here. No doubt about it, but because I'm having fun, I don't really care. I'm just gonna kind of try this. So we'll say, okay, and now this is where it's gonna get into the fun stuff. Let's put on the skins, and so now we're gonna do the same thing here that I was talking about doing earlier. Just get the contours to map correctly, and then you can be, I would suppose, reasonably confident that the whole thing will look right-ish. Okay, so like what contour? Well, how about chin, chin, chin? He's kind of turning toward the audience here. Chin. And this drawing is, I think, pretty definitely going to get replaced. Okay. Contour here. Let's just follow that through. This might be okay, actually. I don't think, I mean, it's happening too late, but that's okay. We'll get to it. And for now, I'm going to go ahead and erase his face so I'm not distracted by a earlier face drawing that I know really isn't what I want it to be. Okay, so what are we doing here? I mean, basically, I'm having fun with frame-by-frame animation. That's pretty much it. Okay, here's where the skins can be getting a little intrusive. Okay, so contour here through the center of his face. Let's put the center line. Pull out a little bit. Okay, and it's not being responsive to my middle mouse, which is kind of annoying. Bring this down. Back to the B key. So we got this coming across, chin. This is wrong. That's his, he's having a unacceptable volume change here. Okay. Boom, boom. Okay. We'll let the eyes go a little wider there because it's a one frame tween. So again, if we, this center line's probably wrong. Let me go get the eye out of there and put the center line in again. Okay, if it's a little more like that, then this is where I need that contour guide. So we get basically, you got about an inch below the helmet lip there for his eyes, so I don't want to lose sight of that. So then this is just a little shape to sort of guide where the eyes are going to wind up. Okay, now he's got that Kevin Bacon nose thing going on. So, and by the way, I don't expect this is going to be a long session tonight. I was kind of in the mood to animate, so I'm going to have him say, what? Here. So he can go T for t, what? Here. Okay. Now we got to get that. As I say, that sort of Kevin. I mean, he basically, this part is being played by Kevin Bacon from circa 1990 something, I guess. Why? No particular reason. It was just kind of what I felt like when I came up with the character. Okay. Now let's see how it feels. Huh? What? Okay. Now you can see that everything's too smooth. Honestly, these drawings at the end are more accurate to the character than the earlier ones. The earlier ones are obviously pilfered from a storyboard that was done a really long time ago. And so, well, let's just have fun with it. Boom, boom. Had a wonderful conversation with my mom just a little while ago. I have a very cool mom. Now, I have a strange situation in that my biological mother, I didn't actually ever know her until about 3 years ago. Wait, 4 years ago now, actually. 2018. And she is such a neat lady. I really love her to death. And, well, she's the only mother I have now because my adopted mom passed away back in, gosh, what was it? I think November? So my adoptive parents have both gone on to whatever comes next. Okay, so the thing I don't like here, across the board, I'm going to basically do a radical liquefaction. This is okay because it's supposed to be squunched, right? And I'm going to change the size up here. Otherwise, Krita will keep forgetting that I changed the size. This is where the skins are helpful because now I can match that sizing way easier. Yeah, that's definitely more accurate to Vespar. Okay, so we'll turn that off. And now let's pull out a little bit and just kind of get his general body language happening. Okay, so this is going to be Ross is out there going, Dave, you know, you got to have a shoulder up thing when he does the squinch thing, right? Yes, Ross, I heard you psychically telling me. If Ross is still here. Ross being, of course, Nagut 40. But boy, I really love what you can do with body language, you know? I think there's a lot of body language idioms, especially in 2D animation, but also in CGI, where you're seeing generally the same kinds of things over and over. You know, it's like in a Pixar type movie or something in that style where you have a character who will kind of say something, and then when they're uncomfortable or whatever, you'll always see this sort of sideways grin kind of thing. There's nothing wrong with it. I mean, it works. People reuse it and learn to do it because it works. right? But and that's not a great example of what I'm talking about. But there are certain idioms that just seem to come up over and over and over again. My point was, my opinion is that really, in their worser period, Disney, for me, kind of got off the track. I think it's where animation began to go sideways, because I think that as much credence and respect that you have to give to the 9 old men and the things they discovered, the 12 principles of animation and all that, it's all good, it's all important, but in terms of in practice, it seems to me that in the 65 to 75 period, 1965 to 1975 period, I think Disney got a little off the path, partly because they were trying to reuse stuff, frankly, because they did reuse a lot of footage and basically rotoscoped their own work from earlier time. But okay, so I'm going to interrupt myself and say this. What I need to do here is put a ball right here, sticks and balls, because this is where his shoulder is. Okay, so that's like his deltoid. So now I need to map that deltoid, right? Okay, now that's starting to make sense. So this is the other deltoid. This one I think is not going to move very much, because there's a shift here in the body weight. But then it's going to come up and over. I used to talk about this a lot more. I don't know why I quit, because it really is a good technique. And I just call it sticks and balls. The rule is if the sticks and balls move to where they're supposed to be, you're probably going to be pretty close with your animation in total. Right? So this becomes a guide. So we know the shoulder's going up here. Little scrunch, like what? And then he's looping around. He's actually spinning here, and it's a 1-frame tween, so we've got a little bit of latitude. And then now we're seeing this shoulder come to the front. This one's in the background. So this is very much like that kind of thing. Now that doesn't, obviously, if you make a mistake and don't plan well, or your idea isn't very effective, then obviously it's still going to look bad even if you execute it perfectly, right? So it's both the concept and the execution that matters. But I mean, honestly, for full frame or full animation, 8 frames per second full animation, this feels pretty good to me. I mean, I feel like this is a good shot. I think I've done my job here. There's some things that are still wrong. You've got some changes in scale with his eyes, clearly, going over to here, right here. Now this is excusable because that's a tween that's kind of, it's motion blur is what it really is. But this part, we've got to get him here settled down. We got to get this drawing is important because this is the landing pose. This is where he winds up. So we want to make sure this is going to be a good solid drawing that's going to look like Vespigi, or Vespar, I'm sorry. Vespigi is his father, the king. And Vespar is the prince. So in here you could maybe play around with this a little bit. You could do something like that. But I don't think I want to take the exaggeration too far. Okay. And now I would also say Beaky. I'm actually going to do some okay, what's going on here? Is there a selection? Control Shift A. Yep, there was a selection. Okay, this is important. He's got this bony cheek, this, Kevin Bacon thing going on. And it's really absent. Really until we get to here, it's missing. So, and this is not actually executed that well either. So, just want to kind of go through and get this pounded into shape so it actually looks like Vespar. And for those of you who are trivia minded that are wondering where I came up with the name Vespar, I have no idea. Not a clue. I figured Vespar, Vespigi, you know, being the dad and the son. And Valnir. There's a character called Valnir in the, who's of course gone now, but who was Vespigi's brother. Initially, Valnir was on the throne, and Vespigi, at Golik's prompting, 20 years earlier, usurped the throne from his older brother. So he's kind of an illegitimate king. Okay, so now, again, getting back to that contour thing. I know where this cheek goes. You know, I can feel it, that whole Kevin Bacon thing. It's right about there. So I'm just going to get that in there. I don't care about... I don't need to connect the lines and the dots. All I need is to make sure that contour is correct. If I have that, I know I'll be able to get the rest, right? And I'm just emphasizing that point because it's something I've been seeing more and more lately, how true it is that if you can just get the knowns working, then the unknowns, which is basically the motion, the flow from one drawing to another, tends to start to take care of itself a little more. It's not a foolproof 100%, but... And by the way, Ross, if you have any thoughts about... Because I'm kind of rambling about a lot of ideas related to the approach to animation. And really, when it comes to frame-by-frame animation, you're better than me. So if you have any thoughts or ideas to contribute, you know, feel free to chime in, man. These people, anybody that's here on my channel needs to know that guy on the chat, Nagut40, is a heck of an animator, and if he has an opinion, you pay attention, because he knows what he's talking about. But, and you know, this is more time consuming, this sort of detailed frame by frame animation, but dang it, it's fun. You know, it's just fun to do. Okay, what is wrong here? I just don't feel good about this. It all just feels wrong. Yeah, see, actually, now that I erased it, it feels more right. Yes. Yep, I just want to get those in there. I feel like I can figure out the rest if I get that right. Okay, so now here, this is... it's just a little risky in that... Obviously, this is a one-frame tween where the character is a little exaggerated, but we still want to be careful not to let him change volume. You know? He kind of looks like that... What was that Don Bluth character from Dragon's Lair? Derek the Daring or something? Kind of has a similar vibe to Derek the Daring. I think that was the character's name. Okay, and now I want to go ahead and let this come out just a little more. I know you don't like to do in-betweens from the keys rather than straight-ahead animation, but I highly recommend it. I'm not sure what you mean. In other words, you're saying... well, I mean, the truth is, you're right. I mean, here we've got a straight-ahead run, obviously. But you're saying... Let me run with that for a moment. Okay, let me run with that for a moment. I'm gonna if I understand what you're getting at here. If I go ahead and kill this, because seems, you know, it feels a little off character. That's not too bad. So what if we take this and well, I want to go Control Shift V. Okay, that's not what I meant to do. So this is going to change the pose a bit, but I'm going Control C, Control Shift V. Okay, and then I'm going to flip this, and say, okay, does that work there? Okay, if I do that, like I said, I am changing the pose here, so I'm basically, I'm wimping out in the sense that I'm saying, hey, look, if I have this other drawing that I know is good, then I'm gonna go with it, okay? Because I just don't think it matters that much. But if you do that, again, it's a big change, obviously, to a 3/4 view. But you're saying you got this key and this key, and then do the tweens based on connecting these two drawings, as opposed to just the straight ahead run. Is that what you're saying? Which would result in less floating, you know, sort of off character, I suppose. Because I'm not going to keep this, by the way, because I don't actually like it that much, but. So that I'm going to go with. Yep, okay, cool. So you're saying get the keys in and then connect them up, which I do tend to do that with broad animation. I don't tend to do it with facial poses as much, I suppose. So, and that might be, you know, just a bad habit or flaw in my method. I'm a little paranoid, frankly, of getting too off character. And when I get a good drawing that's working, I tend to like to reuse it because I just, you know, I'm just not that good, you know. So I wind up getting off character, and the character starts drifting and changing weight, and this sort of thing. Flipping with arrow keys keeps the volume and everything. That's true. Yeah, that's true. And flipping the canvas is super helpful. So, but I'm with you. I am totally with you in the sense that when I stop and put the animation out of my mind and say, okay, this is the pose I want, and now it's hard to describe for the audience here what I'm doing, but mentally, I'm saying, okay, forget everything that came before or after, and just get a good drawing of this character in this pose right now. You know, get this looking good. And then, you know, you'll go back. In this case, that's a one-frame tween, so this one can be exaggerated all over the place, and it's still going to look good. But anyway, I hope that's somewhat clear to people. It probably isn't, but obviously the way I'm working kind of speaks for itself to a degree. Okay, so everything feels pretty good through here. This feels okay. I'm kind of sensing that this whole bit is a little high. This is more exaggeration than normal. And honestly, his eyes are too low right there. They're definitely too low. That's way too low. So I like the attitude or the expression, but that's better. That's better. Okay. That'll work. Okay, so we've got, basically we need to have that border there. I love this music. This is actually from one of my worst movies. I mean, it's a complete failure of a movie, but the theme music, particularly this bit that was at the beginning of the show, was really fun to do. I was basically trying to channel John Williams at that time. And I make no claim to have been successful at doing it, but that's what I remember. That's what I was trying to do. This has been about, gosh, 8 or 9 years ago now, I'd say. Okay, so now that comes up like that. Now this is going to whip around. So yeah, this is... I don't really care about this drawing because it's just a one-frame tween. But this is bugging me. It is exaggerated. It is... You know, the nose is exaggerated. But it's a little bit extreme for this show. It's a little out of the style. A little bit. I don't know. I'm just yakking. Let's see what we have. Yeah, I do not like the way he lands. This part at the beginning, I'm going to get rid of all this. Gone. Because if I can deal with acting more economically and get a good result, I'm going with it. And I'm throwing that out. I don't like it. It feels overdone, and really I like a more subtle acting here where he goes, "What?" And that's all we need here. Not trying to chimp out on doing heavy duty, you know, involved animation, but dang. You know? Now I'm just going to go like this. Especially if you punch this up with that effect where the outlines wiggle a little bit. What? And this would be cool because he could actually say that. He could say that. He could be talking to himself. That does not have to be a line that the audience even hears. I mean, the audience would hear it, but I mean the audience, they're in an auditorium, and there is an audience in the show, right? So... And that captures the attitude better, frankly, as opposed to this sort of bombastic, there we go, this bombastic surprise kind of thing. So, anyway, you can go even simpler by moving the eyes along. And absolutely, Sifter, you are so right. And I love that because I think, you know, if it was just good enough, that would be one thing. But the truth is, sometimes that type of acting is truly better. You know, it's just understated. It's funnier because it's not so in your face where you're basically telling the audience how to feel. And that gets back to what I was saying about Disney's crap period, you know, between 65 and 75, is I think that they were trying so hard to emote so much with body language. And to be fair, I think Sword in the Stone was really a very, very good movie. I thought the acting, I thought, you know, as far as that thing that they were doing, they really hit the peak with Sword in the Stone. It was kind of downhill from there, I think. That's the way I felt about it. But the problem with that type of taking the 12 principles of animation literally at every turn, where everything is emoted with all kinds of body language and everything's in silhouette, what happens is you're constantly telling the audience how to feel. You know, and in filmmaking, that's really the cardinal sin. It's the mark of a bad movie is when you're so on the nose. You know, if you ask Vespar how he's doing, and he says, "Oh, I'm fine." That's not what the dialogue is, but you see the contradiction between what his body language is and what he says is what's funny and entertaining about it. Bad movies, and of course in my filmmaking history, of course, being that I was in the faith and family, marketplace, that was the thing you saw over and over and over in Christian films. You can argue about whether you agree with the message, okay? But Christian films didn't have a bad reputation because they were too in your face about the message, although many of them were. They had a bad reputation because they sucked. They just sucked as movies, generally. And the reason was that the character, if he's feeling bad, the character would say, "Oh, I feel so bad." And then you put the actor in the position where they have to try to emote, with their body. They have to try to find a way to say what's already obvious to the audience. So you're constantly insulting the audience. You're insulting their intelligence. Exactly, Sifter, I just noticed your comment. Exactly right. You don't want to do that. In fact, do the opposite. That's why shows like Beast Wars is actually a really good example of this. It's clear that the humor and the attitude and the characterization and the voices in Beast Wars was not aimed at little kids. They gave the audience credit for having the intelligence of at least a 15-year-old anyway. And that's in the sense of humor. And shows like that, and I think to a degree Avatar was the same way. They just had a little bit of faith in their audience, and I'd like to think I'm doing the same thing with this show, actually. There's a lot of things that are just okay about this show, but I would like to think that the way that I'm playing the characters, Golik especially, but really all of them, is that I am not making any assumptions about the maturity or the intelligence of the person watching this show. I'm assuming they're smart enough to get the idea of political intrigue, the idea of double dealing. Those things are... It's just a lot more fun when you're watching a show that isn't spelling it out for you and telling you not only how to feel, but just not giving you credit for being because see the thing that amateurish filmmakers don't understand is part of the fun for the audience is that little moment when they figure it out. You deliberately leave things out so that the audience can discover it for themselves. Don't consider myself necessarily great at that or anything, but I certainly understand it in principle, and I just think that shows that do that have probably a longer shelf life and a little more staying power maybe than a show that, if you look at what's on, actually I mentioned the other day that I went ahead and spec'd out what was going on Nickelodeon and Cartoon Network. So I looked at their YouTube channels, looked at clips of, the shows that are going on right now. And it was really striking the difference between Nickelodeon and Cartoon Network. I didn't expect to see such a uniform difference. And the difference was, I want to make sure I get this right, but it seems to me that Nickelodeon, across the board, is absolutely committed to the mentality and playing down to the audience that you saw. I was going to say in SpongeBob, but let me back up. Here's the thing. SpongeBob did do that, okay? But he wasn't horrible about it because the humor and the writing in SpongeBob was really, a lot of it was pretty good. It's pretty funny stuff, some of it. Especially the stuff with Patrick and, Plankton, Mr. Krabs. There's a lot of cool stuff in that show. I think when they got the squirrel involved, it was kind of downhill from there because she was never funny. She was never a particularly interesting character. But anyway, now think about what SpongeBob is in terms of being frenetic and excited. Not exciting, but excited. Everybody's, everything's always over the top. Everybody's freaking out in everything they say. Okay. Well, the thing about it is, when you plug that attitude into writing that does have some humor to it, take that vibe that you get from SpongeBob and then peel off the surface. In other words, what is the most top-level surface manifestation of what you're seeing in that show? Well, let's say it's all the screaming. Okay? Now take that surface and paste it onto a show where the writing isn't that good, okay? Where the characters aren't that interesting or funny or whatever. And what you get is this pathological, almost like a missionary zeal to train the nation's children to be as asinine in their behavior 100% of the time as possible. And that's the vibe I get from most of the content on Nickelodeon. It's like they're just falling over themselves to make it so crazy all the time, and what they, and I'm sure they're getting advertising revenue. I'm sure they're making money, but I just don't think they're giving kids enough credit to have the intelligence to appreciate, something. So there's a time to be frenetic. There's a time to be over the top and silly and ridiculous, of course. But when it becomes the characteristic that you peeled off of a show like SpongeBob, and you say, well, this is the important thing. This is the thing we need to make sure everything we produce has this. Lots of just absolutely frenetic, all over the place, people that are going crazy, and okay, you're going to wind up with a slate of programming that is, well, what's the saddest about it is that the parents cannot sit there and enjoy it with the kids. Because it's just, you can't stand it. You watch it for 10 minutes and you're ready to claw your own eyeballs out. I did not notice that nearly as much on the Cartoon Network offerings. If I'm not getting it flipped and backwards in my head. But it looks to me like Cartoon Network is trying a little harder to sort of keep their carburetor a little cleaner and think about the total package of what this show is supposed to be. So if you watch what was the DC Comics? I guess it'd be Teen Titans, which would be Cartoon Network. Yes, it is frenetic. Okay, yes, the characters are a little bit juvenile in the way they're portrayed. But it doesn't feel like they're just obsessed with making sure they're as frenetic and stupid as possible all the time. Like that's the goal. I don't feel that. I just feel like they're saying, well, if you can have a character that's a little excitable, well, it's okay if he talks like this or whatever. You can have a character like that. There's a time and a place for that. Right? Am I making my point here? So Sifter's making a comment about the same thing we observed back in the 80s, really, with MTV. What's going on with Western cartoons is they're playing with the same game YouTubers are. The more dopamine, the more eyes, the more money. Yeah, and I don't... Look, the numbers don't lie. And if the stuff you're seeing on Nickelodeon is keeping people glued to the screen, then I can't argue with that. I'm not saying I think it's good necessarily, but I do respect that they're trying to run a business, and their job is to keep eyes glued to the screen, So I don't really berate that as a mission, because it is important. Because if you don't do that, then you're out of business. Then everybody loses their job, right? So you have to respect the fact that that's part of the game. But I don't know. There's a lot of things you'd have to look at to really evaluate that. Like you'd have to look at things like, are people still like if people have a choice, especially people under 10 years old. Like if they had a choice, would they watch an old Daffy Duck cartoon, or would they watch? I don't know. I think the one that I remember was, well, I don't want to say Ben 10 because I think that was a Cartoon Network one. I can't even remember. The stuff I saw on the Nickelodeon side was so forgettable that I can't even remember what it was. You know? It's really sad. I was really hoping to find more what I would consider quality programming, but I don't know. I'm just not seeing it. So anyway, sorry to be boring you guys with all that stuff. But it is important, especially I'm glad Sifter's here, and because, you know, as a guy you're trying to create a show, and I mean, you've got a big goal, right? And so you want to create something, I assume, that's going to have some lasting power and that you can be proud of on every level, you know? And that is a challenge. And you do have to be aware of what the marketplace is buying. You know? You just do. Now, I think it's, you know, thank God for anime. Because the anime space covers such a wide gamut of different types of programming that I've never come out and said this before, but I think on balance, there's a lot in anime that I have a hard time just sitting and watching. Like I've been watching Hunter x Hunter, and it's on the border, right? It's almost a little too repetitive and excitable and juvenile that I don't want to sit and watch it. But the underlying arcs where they work out some storylines over, you know, a dozen episodes or whatever, are sophisticated enough that I'm hanging in there, you know. But you know, and I loved Fairy Tail. I thought Fairy Tail was great. But again, there's still a lot of stuff that's obviously aimed at kids, and it's a little bit what is the word? I guess I'll go with Sifter on the dopamine thing. You know, how much dopamine do you need to inject into your content? I don't know. I'm just thinking that as a guy that wants to be cranking out entertainment, intellectual property for the next 10, 15 years of life, you know, however long I have left, this is what I want to do. And I think I want to try to make something that's, I don't want to dumb it down and aim at kids. I want kids to enjoy it, but I don't want to go that route. Not that I wouldn't if the situation didn't call for it and it wasn't the right choice, because it could be in some circumstances. But I just really think I want to aim a little higher. I'm not always succeeding, obviously. But, I mean, that's why I've tried to have pretty good voices, you know. Pretty good score, you know. But if I tried to do something that was just crazy and frenetic, maybe it turned out to be fun to do too, you know. I mean, I have to admit, I might enjoy it. I don't know. So, anyway, all right, I'm going to take a drink of my martini. Getting that down to the end. I think I kind of got my, I think I got what I was after here. What? Yeah, I like that. In fact, I really like it because for Vespar, it matches well the attitude and the personality that seems to be emerging out of the character. I mean, I try to have a good idea of who I'm writing when I write them, but Vespar has changed for sure from when I first started the show. And he's going to be, and I don't want to give anything away, but basically, Vespar is going to be a bad guy who in the long run turns out to be a good guy because at heart he really wants to do well and do right. and he's confused right now because he's a teenager and he's kind of caught in a situation bigger than himself. But I'm looking forward to seeing him develop, and I think when it's this is so stupid, but it actually makes me a little emotional because I know the story, right? And I know that there's going to come a time when Vespar is going to have to make some choices that are very, very heroic and admirable, especially for a guy of his age. And I know that. I know that's coming. You guys don't know that because you don't know what the story is. But I don't mind saying that. He's going to turn out to be a really neat character. Let's put it that way. And I look forward to developing it and watching him unfold as a character. I wish that this whole process could go a lot faster than it does, because there's so many things about the bigger epic story that's going to unfold over 12 episodes that are so freaking cool about this show that, you just can't make it all happen quick enough, You just can't. So, anyway, let's do this kind of the way I did the other. I'm going to just call this the ink layer, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go through here and just blitz in keys like that. Okay, so now we can, probably should save my work. So now I'm going to turn this. And if you know what, and I may fail. I mean, ultimately, I had to make 5 movies before I made one that had the ability to be commercially viable and actually, make some money and be something that you could kind of call successful. It took me 5 movies to do it. Now that's a lot of work, because a movie takes you 6 months. You got to, and that's working fast to do a movie in 6 months. So I had a lot of failure before I had success. I just did, and I don't regret it. I think that, I learned a ton. I made a lot of embarrassing mistakes, and I just don't care, because I was doing my best at the time. I'm on the wrong layer right now. Silly me. So, all of which is to say, I'm optimistic that even if Salt and Light doesn't, like this, the epic story in this show is, I can say with great confidence, is excellent. But there's enough things about the show and my learning process, the animation, maybe the voices, whatever, my cheeseball scoring. There's 100 things that could be the reason why the show doesn't grab. Okay? Believe me, I get that. It is what it is, and there's nothing you can really do about it except just try to keep doing better and better, But I am very confident that I'm gonna get there. I'm going to be producing absolutely competitive animated entertainment. I'm very sure of that, because damn it, I'm not going to give up. I'm just, it's just, I'm a little bit tenacious. This might be a good time to actually share something that obviously that was not right. Okay. Okay. See, that's probably one of the biggest motivators out there. You know what happens in the end of the story, and you're just trying to chase after those moments. Yeah, and those heroic moments are the best ones for me. The ones when somebody the movie that's on the last movie I made, Healed by Grace 2, is like that. The the climax of the story is a very, very heartfelt and angry, frankly, confrontation between an adult woman and her father, who she's been estranged from for years. So the movie's got a lot of funny stuff in it, but you know, if I can write a scene like that, and the scene actually makes me cry, frankly, which has happened a few times, then I know I've got something good. I know that I'm not talking down to the audience. I'm not being on the nose. I'm trying to accurately portray the anger and the frustration that those real people felt. And it's hard. You know, this stuff is hard for people. Dealing with somebody that you've got bitterness against, who's disappointed you in your life in different ways. It's really rewarding, let's say. It is rewarding to deal with topics like that in an authentic way that resonates with people, that they come away a little emotional because they can relate to the feelings. You know, that's really what you're trying to do. But anybody that hasn't seen that film, you could go watch it. You know, it's here on YouTube. Healed by Grace 2. It's the last movie I made. It's the one I made with Sean Young. And I'm proud of it. You know, there's things I'd still think that I could improve or could have improved. You know, you're still talking about a complete feature film that was made for a total out-of-pocket cost of $8,000. Total cost. And it all went to the actors. You know, actually, I don't think I'm going to put that in there. Come on. Creed, are you going to be stupid here? There we go. I think what I'm going to do actually here is just go to full screen so I can really see what I'm doing. But, I mean, that's why we do this. You know, at least for me, I think that's why we do it. You know, at the end of the day, what we're really trying to do is give people just a few minutes where they can just say, you know, that was pretty good. That was nice. It was either inspiring or sometimes it gets emotional, obviously. And now it's really it's difficult when you know, with no doubt at all, that you've got it in your heart in terms of understanding like the human condition, and yet you're still limited by your craft and by your technical ability. You know, we've all got limitations, and we're all learning. We're all works in progress, as they like to say. And it's a perennial, I'm sure, Sifter, you know what I'm talking about. It's a perennial frustration that you know what you're trying to do, and you know you're just having to develop the skills to do it, to capture those moments and those ideas and those emotions. What I can say is it gets easier, and you do get more consistent generally. You'll still have occasional, you'll miss the mark sometimes, but Hey Maria. Believe it or not, still working only remote now instead of at the office. We'll be in and out chasing documents for a presentation in the morning. Grr. All right. Maria said grr. Well, it was a pretty good copy actually right there on the cheekbone. Okay, I need to actually pull out a little bitty bit. This is probably where having the skins on would maybe be well advised. So, no, I'm rambling obviously, but I think it's what is it that makes a person, compels a person to want to tell stories, What the hell is that? Where does that come from? Wow, that's cool. Every once in a while I hear this music and I am startled to remember that it's music I wrote. Now, a lot of it, that's not true, okay? So, I'm not trying to do the braggy thing here. I'm just saying it's... Every once in a while I'll hear something and I'll go, wow, that's pretty good. What actually happens to me more often is I'll be walking around the house and I'll be humming this melody to myself. I go, where the heck do I know that from? And then I'll remember that it's actually something I wrote. Doesn't happen a ton, but it's happened enough times to tell the story, I guess. We all, oh, hey, see ya, Sifter. Go to sleep. Gotcha, man. Because we all have them and we feel the need to share with other people if they care about the story or not. Yeah, I mean, it's an important part of the human condition, the human experience, is storytelling. It's both our benefit and it's our bane. I mean, if you in the discussions we've had here about religion, I mean, what is religion other than taking, assigning esoteric or magical explanations of stuff that we just don't understand, and so what do? We make up a story. I always have the caveat that doesn't necessarily mean the story's not true, because the story might be true. But when you look at our proclivity to be storytellers, and you begin to catalog the number of stories, especially stories that serve someone's agenda, that turn out manifestly and provably to be false, then it kind of makes you a little jaundiced in your attitude about religion, actually. In other words, if you see somebody using a mechanism to abuse or manipulate or control people 100 times, why are you going to think that the 101st time isn't that? You know what I mean? That's all I'm saying. It's like just the statistics are enormously tilted in that direction. But storytelling where we all understand and accept in advance that it is a story is a very good thing, is a very healthy thing. And it is something that we can share as a tribe or a community or a family or whatever, And I guess that's the sumupance of it. When we get into danger with storytelling is when we insist that a story is true. When I've kind of alluded to that here a little bit, talking about the Bible. I mean, can you get ethical benefits out of the teachings of Jesus in the Bible? Sure, of course. Let's agree to agree that that's the case. Does that mean that the stories are true? Of course not. Is it necessary that the stories be true? Why would it be? You know? Well, the reason is always the same. The answer to why it would be is always the same. And the answer is that there's a key part of the story that's always magical, that if it's not true, then we're all in trouble in some way. You know? And isn't it interesting that the trouble we're facing always has to do with judgment? Judgment of ourselves, judgment of each other. Judgment, judgment, judgment. Yeah, I'm probably bound to offend somebody tonight talking about this stuff. But I can honestly say that when I make these observations, I'm sincere, man. I'm not just picking a fight or trying to be stupid. I don't like seeing people harmed because they've been victims of manipulation, where the core, the crux of the manipulation is justifying something based on a story that isn't even certain to be true in the first place. It all has to do with tribalism, It has to do with surrounding yourself with that supportive community that we all agree in this tribe to assert the same truths, none of which can we prove. Never. But we're just going to all agree. And for many people, it's way more comfortable to just accept that and be part of the tribe, because ultimately that's the key thing. That's the thing people want, is they want community. They want that sense of feeling like, somebody's got my back kind of thing or whatever, This is, I believe, supposed to be a blink, isn't it? I'm getting a little sidetracked here by the onion skins. I think this is supposed to be a blink. I'm kind of on a roll here, so I'm allowing myself to just flow with it verbally. The thing that's crazy is I really I'm not a people person, okay? I mean, I'm at my core, I'm probably quite arguably an introvert, actually. But I'm a strange mix. I mean, according to the 16 personalities thing, I am an odd mix. I'm an odd mix of introvert and extrovert. But having said that, so I'm not like reaching out all the time, I'm not like killing myself to always like connect with people or whatever. I find it strange because I pretty much never regret it when I do. I like people. I always like people. I've always noticed that. Even when I was a kid, I was, it's like every person I ever met, I could find something to like. You can always find something to like. But that doesn't mean I want to be around that person 24/7. You know what I mean? Here comes the person I adore the most. The beautiful and gracious Valerie Sherman. My bestest bestie. All right. No, Ross. Thanks for asking that, just to sort of, so I could clarify. Yeah, I am not a people person. Neither one of us, me or Valerie, we're really not. And that's what, I guess that's why I'm talking about it, is because it is strange. I like people. I care about people in the sense that I want people to, I had struggles growing up. I dealt with a lot of, abuse and neglect. A lot of which I brought on myself, for sure. But, for me, I find it really important to me I want people to feel okay in their own skin. I want people to feel like that it's okay to try. It's okay to aim high and believe you can do something. Because a lot of times creative people, like us, people don't get it. I mean, they really don't understand why we can be so passionate about, certain things that we do creatively or whatever. So not everyone can relate to it. And I'm a strange mix of a guy that's on the one hand passionately creative, but I'm passionately creative about developing the skill and the craft, learning how to do it. Challenging myself. I can do that. I think I could try that. I'll bet you if I really tried hard, I could do that. That's the way I am. And then, frankly, in some ways, this has been the hardest thing about sort of. I'm one of those people that tends to take till they're dead to decide what they want to do when they grow up. And the reason for that is that once I gain a certain level of craft or skill in a certain area, a lot of the novelty or the attraction of it wears off. Once I've conquered and proven to myself I can do it, then all of a sudden it's not that interesting anymore. And so for that reason, I have to be really, really careful how deep I get into certain things, because I had to do a lot of animation stuff to really be certain that it was something I actually liked to do. I really was not sure of that for quite a while, actually. I was not at all certain that I was going to be able to sustain the effort, because I'm like, once I learn how to, make people move around and talk and, create one episode or whatever, and sort of, conquer that, maybe I'll be like, this really isn't that fun after all. Right? It'd be easier to just go, find customers and, just focus on trying to make money or whatever. And, because, and there's something to be said for that. If you just make money, then you can go, you don't have to worry about money. So you can go do what you want. If you want to be a lazy bum a lot of the time or whatever, you can. And I don't criticize someone who makes that choice. In other words, the fulfillment that creative people tend to try to find in the work, I would say from personal experience, it often turns out to be disappointing. It's a very vexing thing, especially if you're not a particularly emotionally healthy person, because what can happen is, oops, that wasn't supposed to happen. This is it's almost hard logic to follow, but I'll do the best I can. Is that if you're an insecure person, you will avoid just doing the disciplined work that would be necessary to really get your craft up to the level it needs to be at. Okay? Because if you do it, if you get there, you might find being at the top of the hill kind of a letdown. And it turns out that the mystique and the sort of beckoning siren song of this thing that you think you want to do, you know, it can turn out that the mystique is actually a lot more interesting than the actual doing it, the work, the labor, you know. I've certainly seen that in my life, and so that's why I encourage people nowadays to, if you have any doubt or you're afraid that maybe you're going to fail at this, or you know, you want to find out as quickly as possible. Because you want to find out if it really isn't your cup of tea. And I say this because you can literally spend years. It maybe other people can't relate to this. Then people might go, but what the hell are you talking about, Dave? I get that. You know, I'm sure this sounds rather confusing. And I don't know that anything I'm saying is particularly helpful right now either. So I will give you this. This is the sumupence. For me, philosophically, for a young person trying to chase a creative muse of some kind, this is kind of my very brief manifesto that I just popped into the chat. You want to explore and deconstruct inspiring concepts. That could be anything. It could be art, music, you know, engineering. It doesn't matter. Whatever turns you on. But you want to expose yourself to concepts that challenge you and inspire you, that make you excited, where it's like, okay, you know, this is really an interesting thing maybe to chase after, but at the same time, I'm definitely not certain that I would be able to do it or that I could succeed. So, you know, it's just kind of a compelling thing. Compelling is a good word. But this is what a young person should do. You want to explore and deconstruct inspiring concepts. So the deconstruct part has to do with self-educating, even though it's a useful mechanism even in an educational context, you know, in college or whatever. Okay, that's number one. Number two, decide what you want. We've talked about this here. The problem for people that have had a rough upbringing, or just for a host of reasons, the problem of deciding what you want is problematic. In that, as I have again said here, you must believe that what you want is both possible and permissible for you. It's absolutely essential. If you don't believe, you'll poke at it for years, and you'll talk yourself out of progress and or success for a lot of reasons I won't get into, that are perfectly understandable, but it has to do with various manifestations of self-protection. So it's very important that you decide exactly what you want. That's step 2. Step 3, embrace inconvenience and risk to acquire it. You've got to be inconvenienced. You have to. If you're not willing to go out of your way and suffer some setbacks, then you don't really want it in the first place. And I've said here, I can't prove it. This is a little esoteric, but I say only half jokingly that whatever you're trying to do, the universe will test you. Everything will go wrong. Because if you can't persevere and keep going through that, do you really deserve success? Do you really deserve it? I mean, come on. How bad did you really want it anyway, you know? So that's the next thing. The next step is don't settle for less. And I mean that creatively. In other words, set high standards for yourself that are a little out of your reach, frankly. And then don't settle. This is the greatest weakness in my work here in animation over the last couple of years, is settling. Being in a hurry. I extol the virtues of speed instead of extolling the virtues of quality. And that's really, when I've done that, it's really just an excuse for being either too lazy or not wanting to invest the time. You know, you don't want to invest a bunch of time and find out it still sucked anyway, right? Nobody really wants to do that. Because that hurts. You know? Then you feel like you wasted that time, or it's just plain discouraging if you do bad work. But see, we all do bad work at first, and you have to. And then the last step is refuse to give up. The people who fail always are the people who gave up. If you don't give up, is it axiomatic that you'll succeed? No. It's not 100% axiomatic that you'll succeed. But if you do give up, it is axiomatic that you will fail. Think about it. It's pure logic. You definitely will not succeed if you quit. So you must be committed to be tenacious and keep trying through the setbacks. Sometimes those setbacks are physical. If you're trying to play a musical instrument, then the setbacks are physical. You'll be on a plateau, and then all of a sudden you'll make a little progress, and you'll be all excited, like, I finally got the big breakthrough, and then boom, you'll hit another plateau immediately. You go, crap. You know? But that recipe right there, honestly, is a great recipe. I'll say it again. Explore and deconstruct inspiring concepts. These words were chosen very carefully. Decide what you want, embrace inconvenience and risk to acquire it, never settle for less, and refuse to give up. If a person just followed that, in most cases, within a 2 to 5 year window for sure, they would achieve really cool stuff. You know, whatever it is they think they want to do, they'd probably come darn close. And, you know, it does help to be tenacious. I mean, we had this session a couple of days ago on the musical score for the, here, I'm a guy who, I've been making music largely professionally too, because I've done a lot of radio jingles and stuff. But for, 30 years. And I still consider myself a beginner in so many ways, especially with scoring. Golly, there's so much more to learn all the time. Boom, baby. And frankly, I think it's infinite. I think that's actually how the universe is constructed. We never stop learning, actually. We never stop discovering. That's why, for some people, if you ever wonder why, the sort of proverbial story of the person who was able to handle failure, but then they were destroyed by success, that's usually why. People are destroyed by success because once there's no longer any need to be hungry, no longer any need to learn, no longer any need to challenge yourself, it's a universal human experience to go, is this all there is? Is this it? It's extremely uncomfortable place to be, to no longer have those unreachable things out there beckoning you. Chasing them is half the fun, but the key thing to remember is it is the chasing that's the fun. Once you catch it, you're like, well, okay. I mean, heck, if you're like me, once you catch it, you're embarrassed to like tell other people how to do it, because as hard as it might have been for you to learn how to do it, once you've learned it, you feel like, okay, well, actually that wasn't as hard as I thought it was going to be, and now I'm almost, I would feel guilty charging someone for this knowledge or whatever. You know what I'm saying? It's weird how so many artistically inclined people aren't really people. I certainly am not. Hunkering down in the house, almost completely isolated, during COVID was no hardship for me. Yeah, and I'm the same way. I mean, again, I'm a mix. I'm a mixed breed. So certainly, one of the reasons I live stream is just to sort of connect with people, and I don't know if it's like I said, I'll avoid it. It's like, okay, so if I think about, I really should call this person, or I really should check in with that person, and I'm like, oh god, I just don't really want to do it, and I just, I'd rather just go work on my cartoon or whatever, right? But when I do it, I always am glad I did. I'm always enjoy it. Am I hearing Valerie? I'm hearing footsteps. I see. She's over in the kitchen. No, it's really a weird thing to ponder, how we have these proclivities to avoid things that when we go ahead and just take the initiative and do them, we always wind up feeling good about it. So what the hell's going on in us that we would avoid those things? It's kind of weird, actually. I mean, I have my theories about it, but since I'm not going to be going on this live stream that much longer, I don't want to dovetail in yet another philosophical direction. But I hope you guys, I hope you like that comment I made at 7:56, because it really does encapsulate the way I look at, the broad spectrum of creative work these days, and what is required in order to have the joy and satisfaction of getting somewhere interesting, basically. Getting to an interesting destination, which is really all we're trying to do. I mean, some people are trying to, get rich or whatever, and there's nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with being rich. You started teaching animation despite being completely terrified of doing it, so I could get over myself about getting up in front of people. Oh yeah, that's great. It's a good thing to do. You're more of an extrovert now. You were an introvert as a child. Yeah. Yes, and in the workplace, you certainly have to learn to tolerate people, as you say, for sure. That can be challenging. Okay, I'm going to turn the sketch down and the skins off so I can get a better bead on his expression here. Oh, not quite. Not quite. I need to turn the stabilizer off. The stabilizer is tripping me up here. It's tripping. Okay, this mouth could probably be copied and pasted over to this one. A key, standard free transform. And I'm going to copy that. Also, put on a mask to sell people an idea to be successful. Oh, whoa, you got a bunch of stuff here. Guess that's why I find it difficult to do the social media thing, because it feels like you have to play up to people. Put on a mask to sell people. Well, I get a little snarky about some of the stuff I see on Facebook. To me, when somebody's telling me how they're just killing it in the futures market or whatever, and so now, just because they love me so much, they're going to sell me a course on how I can do it too for just $7. Normally $2.99. I mean, I just think, oh my God, it's just become this. There's like a cookie cutter marketing methodology that everybody's jumping on these days. That's just, I guess that's not exactly social media as far as being a social butterfly or whatever, but Okay, I am going to go ahead and put Vespar's brows. I'm doing the anime thing in this case. I'm going to put his brows on the top. I don't always do that. On this show, but in this case it feels like the right thing to do. I'm going to turn the skins on so I can really flow this nicely. I guess I hold forth the conceit that maybe something I say here when I'm live streaming will actually help somebody, but I have no, you know, illusions about whether that really is the case. I have no idea. Okay, that's looking pretty good. People keeping it real are people keeping it real rarely are keep. Well, the irony is when keeping it real becomes a thing, and so then people keep it real because that's what they've been taught is how you know, achieve the goal, which is usually to sell something or advance in your career or company or whatever. It's just stupid, but you've really hit upon the key thing. The key thing being that for people to be, this is what I mean by being, you know, feeling comfortable in your own skin. For people to actually feel liberated to be who they are and potentially offend somebody or potentially make a mistake, but it's really been imprinted on them that that's okay. Okay? People like that are vanishingly rare. Most of us just aren't that lucky to have the encouragement or the you know, it's I don't use the word imprinted loosely because I do believe that you know, problems like shame and insecurity and a lot of these things are literally imprinted on you from childhood, and it's hard to shake them, man. It's hard to shake them sometimes. If you're speaking to one's higher vibration, people tend to skip that type of content. This is why controversy and entertainment drive people attention to certain content creators. I mean, I guess Eckhart Tolle is probably the quintessential example of somebody who doesn't seem to be trying very hard to appeal to anyone. I mean, he's got to be the dullest guy in the history of the universe, but he's keeping it about as real as it gets, and as a result, he's developed quite a wide following. You know. Alright, let's see if this looks like. What are we doing on time? Yeah, we're 1 hour and 45 minutes. I'm going to eat my olives. I'll turn off the microphone so you guys don't have to hear me crunch my olive. Seems to me these are all happening too slowly. That's better. In fact, frankly, at 8 frames per second, I'm almost inclined to just step on that and cut one of the tweens out. Yeah, I mean, that feels better. Oh, I know what I did wrong. I know what I did wrong, friends. This is supposed to be... Let's go here. Let's do it this way. Okay. Get rid of that. Turn on the skins. I forgot about, he's supposed to be saying what. Okay, so this would be a good example where having the wiggly outlines would actually probably be a good thing. But I'm going to probably leave that for next time, because I'm ready to be done. What? Ooh. Definitely not. Skip that down there. And actually, let's put that almost maybe 2 frames down. Kill that. What? This is not working at all. This is horrible. This is not working at all. And this, whoops, I need to really grab that selection there. That's probably better. I think I'm going to start acting out more of my animation and rotoscoping it till you feel that. I mean, you're going to get a better performance that way. I mean, of course, there's always the argument you can have with yourself that, well, my acting sucks. But, I mean, yeah, why wouldn't you rotoscope? At least to get the timing. At least to get a sense of what the timing is. It'll help you. Of course it'll help you. What? Okay, and then here, this is where I think I want to grab this and actually sneak it up like that. Yes, that's what I want to do. And then B key, just a little erase right there. That looks better. What? Yeah, I like it. Alright, I think that's it for me. I think I'm going to quit. Yeah, it's 8:17. I get Zuko to bed in about 10 minutes anyway. Yeah, pull out your camera, your phone, and shoot a video of yourself. You know, you'll become a better actor. You'll become a better animator. There really is no downside. In fact, actually, Amar, that's a great example of something that, for some stupid purist reason, someone might avoid doing, and it's insanity. I mean, it was good enough for Disney. Of course, any animator is going to improve their work by studying live acting. You know, no doubt. So, okay, I think my job here is done. Thanks for the stream, dude. You betcha. You guys know there will be more later. Ta-ta all.